Welcome to the program launch of Central Ohio's plan for welcoming immigrants and refugees. We are glad you could join us today. My name is Guadalupe Velasquez, and I am the Managing Director of Welcoming City. Central Ohio is home to more than 180,000 immigrants and refugees, and where over 100 languages are spoken. Much of the growth in this population and our economy is due to the many immigrant and refugees that reside in this region. The positive cultural, social, and economic impact, the vibrancy within our neighborhoods, and our international corridors is in part due to the wide diversity of Central Ohio. Creating a strategic welcoming plan that is based on targeted universalism, it benefits everyone and provides a welcoming space of belonging, and exactly what we need. We would like to thank everyone that has contributed to the development of this plan, including our steering committee members, the Franklin County Advisory Council members, and many community members that added to the goals and strategies of this welcoming plan. Now let's hear more about why this plan is so important from our national partner.
Hello, my name is Mo Kantner, and I'm the Director of State and Local Initiatives at the American Immigration Council, formerly New American Economy. On behalf of the Gateways for Growth team, I'm excited to be a part of the kickoff and launch for Central Ohio's plan for welcoming immigrants and refugees. The Gateways for Growth Challenge was started by New American Economy and Welcoming America in 2016 and takes the idea of creating more inclusive and prosperous communities by combining tailored data and research on the contributions of immigrants with technical assistance over the course of a year in the development of a multi-sector strategic plan. Columbus was one of only 10 communities from around the country to receive the grant this round, along with communities like Lincoln, Nebraska, Dodge City, Kansas, and Gainesville, Florida. We released the tailored research report back in May, and highlights from that report found that immigrants in Central Ohio make up about 8.7% of the population, but are responsible for over 26% of the population growth over the past 5 years. They're also over 22% of STEM workers, and over 20% of transportation and warehousing workers. And importantly, immigrants working in Central Ohio have helped create or preserve over 8,500 local manufacturing jobs that would have vanished or otherwise moved elsewhere. They're nearly 12% of entrepreneurs in the region and contribute billions to the local economy. When we create a supportive environment for our immigrant and refugee neighbors, it means that our entire community will prosper and grow. So with that context, the leadership team in Columbus has been working tirelessly over the past year to coordinate and execute a strategic immigrant integration plan that includes suggestions and feedback from key stakeholders within government, business, and the nonprofit community, as well as insights from the immigrant community most impacted by this plan. The Central Ohio Plan for Welcoming Immigrants and Refugees is the culmination of these efforts and outlines concrete, actionable recommendations to move the region forward. So many people and local organizations have contributed to this plan, making it truly unique and responsive to the needs of Central Ohio. I particularly want to thank the team from Us Together, Councilmember Remy's office, and the Franklin County Board of Commissioners, who played an instrumental role in shepherding this process through the past year. And while this is just a starting point for the implementation road ahead, I'm so proud and excited for all the hard work we've been able to do to get to this point. So thank you again for attending the launch, and congratulations again.
Hello, my name is Christina Vera, and I'm the Director of Operations for Femergy. I'm also a member of the Columbus Board of Education, and today I come before you as a steering committee member, co-chairing the Safe Communities Committee, collaborative team of committed community members on the strategic welcoming plan. This committee includes community members and leaders from businesses, nonprofit, government, faith-based, academic, and multi-ethnic organizations. I personally enjoyed being a part of this process because I really felt that the community was at the table. Our steering committee goals were to created a shared vision for welcoming, integration, and belonging for immigrants and refugees. Develop a comprehensive plan of policies and programs that support the vision. Expand current immigrant and refugee integration initiatives. Build relationships across sectors that will leverage the resources and assets of diverse partners. And maximize the economic, civic, and social opportunities available to all residents. To achieve this, we facilitated over 14 focus groups of immigrants and refugees, one of which included school administrators. These 14 focus groups address the following topics: education, equitable access to affordable housing, access to health care, safe communities, connected communities, civic engagement, and government leadership, and collected additional data by conducting 4 surveys, 2 directed at adults and 2 directed towards youth. Participants in the focus groups and surveys were invited by organizations that serve immigrants and refugees in Central Ohio. As a result, we identified 5 priority areas to focus on in our welcoming strategy. Those 5 are equitable economic and workforce development, equitable education, connected, safe, and healthy communities founded on social justice, equitable access to services, resources, and ESL classes, and civic engagement, government, and leadership development. Now let's hear from Nadia Casavine, Columbus City Council Member Emmanuel Remy, and Franklin County Commissioner Kevin Boyce.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nadia Kasvin, and I am co-founder and director of Us Together, providing integration services to refugees and immigrants. And today we have with us Commissioner Boyce and Councilmember Remy. Thank you so much for joining our conversation. And to start our discussion, why this plan is so important to our community?
First of all, let me say thank you, Nadia, and thank you to the City of Columbus for hosting such a grand conversation that is needed. Central Ohio is a place, as Guadalupe laid out earlier, that is made up of people from all walks of life, all parts of this great globe that we all share and live in. And one of the beauty about Central Ohio right now is that we're growing at a rate that it's only going to become more dense with people from different walks of life. And so the idea to prepare for that growth in a way that lets families and lets people know that they very much are welcome and a part of our community is a part of our culture and a part of our DNA and our Central Ohio personality, if you will. So as we grow, it's just so critical that there is a pathway to welcoming families and welcoming people so that they know they're very much a part of our Central Ohio tapestry as anyone, and that we want them to be, and it's what makes us a stronger and better community.
Thank you. And Councilmember Remy?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you to you, Nadia. Thank you to Guadalupe, my assistant, Lucy, and every member of the steering committee and the communities who created this strategic welcoming plan. We had a vision, and everyone worked together to achieve that vision. I know that myself, my colleagues, the mayor, are all very grateful for the work that's been accomplished. But to answer the question, why it is important to create a strategic plan, as I echo Commissioner's comments about the tapestry of our community and the people that make it up, it's important that we're thoughtful and collaborate among local governments, organizations in the community, as we make a very concerted effort to truly serve our immigrant and refugee neighbors in a way that's welcoming and inclusive. Having a strategic plan to guide our work will show to be crucial as we introduce and change policies to better serve those that make up our community, whether it be for economic or workforce development or healthcare access. It can and it will be improved by this strategic plan as we move forward. So thanks.
Thank you so much. And in our conversations with the refugee and immigrant communities, what we've heard is that, wow, somebody cares. People in this city and in this county really care to take time and effort to create such a plan. So thank you. And now to our next question. So now that we have this plan, what are our priorities? What should we start with, and how City of Columbus and Franklin County sees implementing these goals and strategies?
You want to go first this time?
That's fine. I think it's important, it's an important priority for Columbus City Council from a government leadership section of the plan to, we're in the midst of developing and legislating a citywide language access policy. And so we're working to complete that legislation, working with the mayor and his administration in order to implement it over the remainder of this year so we can be successful at doing that. But we want our residents to know that when they come and interact with the city government that serves them, that they're able to communicate with them no matter what language that they speak. I think another priority that's important is for both the city and the county to work together to be a certified welcoming city and county. With Welcoming America, who we heard earlier is one of two national organizations giving us the Gateways to Growth Initiative platform. So that part's very important. I'm really excited to have one of our newest members of council, Councilmember Lourdes Barosa de Padilla, as a colleague this year, and working with her in implementing this plan, and of course someone that has lived experience to be a voice amongst us on council, and then council's commitment of creating a committee that's neighborhoods now. It's Neighborhoods and Immigrant, Refugee, and Migrant Affairs Committee. So we're making a statement by having that as part of our policy and part of how council operates. But for us to implement the recommendations of this plan, we'll need to focus on collaboration and communication among government offices, as well as work with members of the community to ensure its success. So I definitely look forward to working with Commissioner Boyce moving forward, and I think we're well on our way to a successful start.
Thank you.
Well, Councilman Remy, I'm looking forward to working with you as well. I still recall the conversation where you called me and said, hey, how can we work together to create a better Central Ohio in terms of welcoming, and we went from there. And so it's going to be a pleasure to work with you in this capacity too. Nadia, I'm not sure if there are any 3 or 4 or even 5 priorities to just zero in on, because quite frankly, there are many. Central Ohio is growing. We're expected to grow by over 1 million people over the next 20 years. And that seems like a long time, but it really isn't. Because you've talked about infrastructure needs and housing needs, educational needs, employment needs, and so I could go on and on and on. But if there were 3 areas that we should focus on to prioritize, not just for everyone, but very specifically our newest residents, our newest friends, I would maybe line up 3 very important issues. First, it'd be workforce development. It's no secret Intel is building one of their largest manufacturing plants for some of the most advanced technology that exists on the globe. They're building it right here in Central Ohio, albeit Licking County, that is considered Central Ohio. And so we've got to be able to prepare the workforce to supply Intel with the resources they need to be successful, because that advanced technology will fuel the world, not just America. And so it's so important that we're able to provide the workforce, and that means preparing our residents for those opportunities that align with the needs there. The second would be housing needs. As of today, we are 50,000 units short of affordable housing in Central Ohio, yet we're growing every day, and we're projected to grow substantially over the next 2 decades. And so we've got to think very deeply about what the housing needs. And for some of our immigrants coming to Central Ohio, the housing stock may not fit their family construct. And so we've got to be thoughtful about what it is those families that we want to be here, that we want to be a part of Central Ohio, what are their needs and what makes Central Ohio a great place, not for them to just survive, but to thrive. And then finally, educational needs. I think Councilman Remy mentioned it with regards to not just English as a second language, but all the things that come culturally with language barriers and so forth. And so we've got to start, and I'm glad we have our school board member here and being active, because that's really where the rubber meets the road, to ensure that families, not just the students, that may come and be in the school system, but their families that they go home to each day also have the resources educationally to be able to be a part of this community in a very productive way. And so I think if we line those things up, I think we've got a great pathway. The one thing I'll also add is Councilman Rimby talked about the county and the city working together. The only other part I'd add is that our corporate citizens are also a part of that equation, that yes, the county and the city, we're the sort of mom and dad of Central Ohio, if you will, but our corporate community also is a part of that family construct. That's where the jobs are. That's where our economic development growth happens. And so we've got to make sure that we're all in tune with this conversation about growth and providing the resources that it needs to take full advantage of the diversity that we have in Central Ohio.
Thank you. And the thing is that this is not the first time we're talking about welcoming. City of Columbus has been doing this for the last 30 years. And as you mentioned, Councilmember Remy, it's very important that one of our next steps is to think about certification for welcoming city and welcoming county. And it's a rare thing that both city and the county together apply for welcoming certification. But that would be a recognition not just of the work that we've been doing for the last 12 months, but of the work that both city and the county been doing for the last 30 years. And I just want to make sure that people understand that this is a work in progress. But now how we can sustain this effort?
I guess I'll do it.
Well, as the commissioner said, one of our roles is, I believe, as an elected official, is we have the ability to convene people. And so, to his point, we need to find other people that can contribute to the implementation of the plan. Many of those being our corporate partners. And so, it'll be up to us, as we've done, as the commissioner's done with the New American, the council that you have, and certainly we will make sure that we're reaching deep into our community to make sure that everyone understands, that there is this part of our fabric that obviously, I think of it from an arts perspective. We have artists that are amongst us that we may not even have identified yet because they don't understand exactly the support that's out there that's available to them. Other things that have popped up over the years are people that are distrustful of government, for instance, and coming from a refugee culture, and understanding that it is okay to reach out for assistance and help from our police, and trying to bridge that gap with the police liaisons that we have, and certainly in speaking with our police chief, the ability to hire people that look like them as well to communicate and send that message. So that's one priority, I believe, to get this off the ground. But this is a living, breathing document, right? I never believe that we sit there and we pass a resolute plan and that's the extent of it, because things change and we're constantly evolving, and we also find that needs change. And so as we're having these discussions and we're bringing people to the table, we want to make sure that everybody's needs are being heard, and that we're helping to solve that problem and make sure that people understand that we're here to help.
Yeah, I just said, I think Councilman Remy said it very well. Sustaining a plan, I'll just add to what he said. The other part is putting your money where your mouth is. Franklin County, just a couple of weeks ago, we appropriated an additional $1 million to some of that effort and some of that work. And so we've got to, we can't just talk the talk. We've got to show by allocating resources and allowing agencies like yours and many others to really assist us in that partnership and help us identify where we can invest very strategically so that we can sustain the trajectory of being an inviting and welcoming community. The other thing that I would say to sustain this is it can't just be the city of Columbus and Franklin County. I mean, Central Ohio is a very large region. The Franklin County is the largest county in the state of Ohio with just over 1.3 million residents. And embedded in that 1.3 million residents are places like Reynoldsburg, Whitehall, Gahanna, Dublin. Just go down the list of these communities. And to me, in order for this to be sustained, they've got to step up and join us in the conversation. They've got to step up and join us in allocating resources and being dedicated. Each of them need their own New American Advisory Councils. Each of them need to have representatives on our New Americans Advisory Council. Each of them need to be positioned to do their part for welcoming in every way, from housing to workforce development, education. And we've all got to think strategically about our piece of the tapestry, our piece of the puzzle. And I think when we do that, we can really create an environment that can be sustained long beyond any one of us. The faces will change throughout time, but having the plan that everyone regionally has bought into is what will allow us to go to the next level.
Thank you. And this is right. This is the plan for the whole region. We are here talking about not just city of Columbus, but Central Ohio. And so what are our next steps?
Well, happy to provide that leadership for our other communities, and to Commissioner Boyce's point, we got to bring everybody to the table, because it doesn't make any sense for us to do it here and live in somewhat of a vacuum when other people that surround us need to join hands and be a part of it. I think that we need to define the criteria for assessing success and identifying, corresponding metrics as we move forward. And then also, we got to implement regular monitoring. Are we meeting those metrics? Are we successful in what we're trying to accomplish? And then we got to report that back out. We want to make sure that people understand, again, this is a living, breathing process, and we want to make sure that we're growing as the community grows with this plan, and certainly want to make sure that we're letting people know what we've been able to accomplish. And so it's an exciting time. This is been a lot of work, and again, thank you to everyone that helped to contribute to developing the first iteration of this plan, but there's a lot of work ahead of us. The implementations where it really starts to matter, and where it really starts to make a difference in our community, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd add to that is, we're going to be coming out of a COVID environment, a pandemic that we've been in for the last 2 years, and we've been through a lot as a community in the respective areas that we're talking about. But I just add two things that we can do. One, we've generally had New Americans Advisory Council annual convening, and I think this next one should be a very strategic regional conference where we really work to get representatives from Dublin and Reynoldsburg. And I know they come, and I know they're engaged, but this time we should provide a platform to really push the conversation and have a lot of plans going on. The second one would be a more aggressive legislative strategy. I just think that there's a lot to be done at the state level with both state law as well as state government, where they can partner with us in different ways to create a state that provides a flourishing environment. And so I think those two areas will help get us there.
Thank you so much for the conversation, and we are so excited to start the implementation of this plan, and so excited about our next New American Forum, and we want to welcome everybody there. Thank you.
What a great discussion with our community leaders, with our elected officials. We have great leadership in Central Ohio, and we're so thankful to their commitment to ensuring that we have a space of belonging and welcoming here in Central Ohio. Now we're going to talk about and hear about the goals and strategies in the strategic plan through a panel discussion of community leaders. So I'd like to invite Dr. Rosaire Ifedi, who will be moderating that panel discussion, to the mic.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. What a wonderful time. We've just heard from our councilman, and it's now time to do some actual discussion of what this means. Again, thank you, Guadalupe and the team, Nadia. This is an exciting time to be doing this after so long. We're putting this work to bear. So we have a wonderful set of panelists that are going to give us a little bit more meat on what the plan is all about. They have lived experiences, they worked in the committees, they worked in the steering committee, but we're going to hear from them. Again, my name is Rosaire, and I'm associate professor at Ashland University. I've actually lived the experience as well as an immigrant. Guadalupe always loves me to say that. Born in Nigeria, has lived here for almost 30 years. I did work in the steering committee on education, so I will be speaking on that as well. But with that said, I'd love our panelists to introduce themselves, take a few minutes, tell us your name. Please enrich the public about who you are and why you're so important to this discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ifedi. My name is Rebecca Nelson, and I'm a recent retiree. So my role is not affiliated to an organization right now, but I serve on a number of boards and committees, including this wonderful project. I also serve as a board member for Asian American Community Services, as an advisor to the Bhutanese community of Central Ohio, and I'm a board member of the newly established Ohio Institute for Communities of Color. I'm also a founding member of OPAL, Ohio Progressive Asian Women's Leadership Group. I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Jahaira Rose, and I am the founder of Proyecto Mariposas. I am also the director of the Martin de Porres Center, a ministry with the Dominican Sisters of Peace. I have been here for 30 years, being a member of Columbus, which I loved it, and I've seen the growth. And I work a lot with Latina girls and mothers, as well as in a lot of the community schools. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jahaira.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Kauthar Musa. I work with a nonprofit organization. It's called Heart of Ohio Family Health Center. I'm a HIV program coordinator, and also I am Northeast Area Commissioner. I'm glad to be here, and thank you so much again.
Congratulations, Kauthar.
Thank you.
The first Somalia-born
Northeast Area Commission.
That's it. Welcome. And I'm sure you'll share some of that with us as we talk.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. So I'm Ibrahim Asso, proud chair of the Ohio African New Immigrants Commission, among other things. And over the past few years, I've had the opportunity of really being immersed in having the opportunity to build a lot of different kinds of programs through not only the city of Columbus, but through the Ohio History Connection and other organizations that really help us rethink and redesign what inclusion and integration look like. And so I'm glad to be contributing to this conversation with such an esteemed panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Rosaire. My name is Bill Christensen. I'm pastor emeritus of international ministries at Vineyard Columbus, which is a community that includes over 130 nations. And through my involvement in the last quarter century, I've been able to connect with a number of immigrant communities here in Central Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. An outstanding panel, if ever there was one. So let's get into the discussion about what this is all about, what it means to us. As you walk through, and some of us worked in the steering committee, but also your work obviously has something to do with immigrants, newcomers. One of the key terms in this whole affair is targeted universalism. So I'm sure you're going to be talking more about this. The question always comes up, why? Why do we need to target these certain populations, right? So we explained the goals, as you've heard even from the previous panelists, the goals are universal. As we target certain populations, the benefits accrue to everybody else in the community. So I know you'll be speaking more on this as the questions come to you. And here we go. So the first question goes, and we're now talking about overall access, right? Overall access to newcomers. Rebecca, maybe you can get us started. How can we ensure that immigrants, refugees, thrive even when they come with limited English language skills.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the points that I'll be bringing up are also reflected in the recommendations in the plan. So this is just a high-level reflection on it. But one of the things that really needs to happen here is a central hub. A hub that can connect immigrants to resources and can connect employers and organizations to resources to help them as well. Information is power and access. So that's the starting point that we need to make sure. We are a resource-rich community, but sometimes we can be connection poor, right? And the piece about employers and organizations needing to be connected around these resources and trainings is because there is a mandated responsibility, right? So not everybody still knows that Title VI, the Civil Rights Act, provides language that says you need to provide services that meet people at where they are with their language, right? So there's a compliance piece as well that we need to be thinking about. But beyond compliance, I don't want us to be thinking about just compliance. To be a truly welcoming city, that means going beyond that.
Yes.
How do we connect, and how do we bring a sense of belonging? So just an example I'll give around that is I think many organizations now are aware of Title VI. I hope that there's growing numbers who are aware of it, especially if you receive any state or federal funds. But we still rely on some translated documents. Yet many of the communities that we have sprinkled throughout our neighborhoods maybe are not literate in their language. So we need to also look at audiovisual methods and utilizing community leaders to be our partners in sharing important information. And that brings me to my final point that I'll share to this question, which is that we need to listen to and engage with community leaders, both those who are in formal roles and informal roles. The person who lives in your neighborhood might not be a board chair, but they may be the person everybody goes to for questions and answers, right? And the people who represent those identities on our staff. You know, they're not just being employed, they also have a lot of wisdom to share as well. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, because I know we can get passionate. And there are so many examples you could share, even through the count of citizenship and then COVID. I know you have some examples. If we have time, we'll come back to you on that. So let's go to you. The question I'd like to pose to you is sort of similar, but you do work with girls, young women. So again, the question of access. How can we make this better for them, Jahida?
Thank you. And I will add to what Rebecca was saying on having a special hub, a welcoming hub for our families, not only for girls. And women. We talk about investing in girls. When we provide someone this access, not only on the language and ensuring that they have that new language, English as a second language, but we also welcome their heritage language. We have to do both of those to be able to provide them with new opportunities. And when we invest in this, when we invest in some of the plans that we have on these goals, we're going to be able to provide girls with new opportunities. We're going to be able to provide women with new opportunities for work, new opportunities for education, as we are intentional on how we implement this plan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. The idea of a hub, welcoming center, I think we're going to see it repeated throughout the discussions and really a vital part of this plan that's come out. Before we leave that question, I'll jump to you, Bill, because you have some experience in this area of ESL education and ESL classes. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, we've been involved in ESL for a quarter of a century, and we had over 800 students pre-pandemic. They're building back up now. But the importance of ESL is really critical. In the teaching of ESL, it's not just speaking and listening, reading and writing, but it's also life skills. And so helping newcomers in Central Ohio to understand credit, understand how they can build wealth, eventually perhaps be able to buy an apartment or a home. All of that comes together in this whole process. And so language is critical. It's also a stepping stone to employment or to better employment. I've seen quite a change happen over the years where it used to be the majority of students that we have had not yet secured jobs. Now, increasingly, there are people who have jobs, but English is holding them back from better jobs. And so this is an ongoing and critical need in the community. And it's also important to this idea of a hub that there are a lot of programs already in existence, but we simply don't know where they are. And so to have a better communication link to all of that is important as well.
Thank you. That is so vital because everyone is working almost in isolation and people don't know where to start, right? But this hub idea is just making sure you go somewhere and get the information. So thank you very much. Kotha, I'm going to come to you still in the aspect of access, but speak to us about health, right? You've worked in that area. How can we improve positive interactions between immigrants and healthcare providers, right?
Yeah, so thank you so much. I believe that every U.S. citizen or every immigrant or refugee should have an access to the healthy. And also prevent two things, preventive and healthy care. They should have access for those. Overall, when those things improve individually, the community health system should improve. They both integrated each other. So I believe also in order to improve the access for healthy, if the provider is listen to the patient, that could help. And also providing interpretation services, that's one thing that will help. And also I believe creating multicultural competence training for providers, hospitals, clinics, health facilities, in where there is high number of refugees and immigrants, hiring more people who look like them. I think that's something will help the access. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. And I know, again, that's an area you've worked in already. And one thing we can say about this plan is any provider, companies, organizations, city, governments can literally pick it up and run with it and find things to do. So the goals, the strategies are laid out very clearly, like the one you just said. Hire people who look like that. That's very simple, truly. Thank you, Kotha. Okay, before we leave the area of access, I want us to look at just the legal aspect. And I think, Jahida, you'll probably provide some information on that. Yes. Speak to us.
Very quick, I believe that having affordable legal access is very important for our immigrants and our community, because oftentimes the need is so complex. So it's not only one area, it's not only maybe family law, but you had immigration law, you may have work or job type of law. So we have to be able to provide things that are affordable for our communities. And having that, that will help create path for better citizenship, for more healthy communities.
I'll tell you, I'll do a follow-up, not to. Can you share some specific examples? Because this is one area immigrants, newcomers will tell you they don't even know where to start. So kind of share some examples, please.
So from my example, if we have, let's just say, a family that is an immigrant, and they have immigration needs, right, for immigration law, but then there is also a case of domestic violence. There is also a case of custody. So now you're engaging other types of law that if it's not affordable, then they're not going to be able to get out of that situation. So it is important for us to have that. That's why having all of those points and going back to the hub where we can have all that accessibility, it's important.
Yes, thank you very much, because every one of them matters.
Right, every single one of them.
To help people thrive. All right, thank you. Again, one area we looked at in the plan, or that's been addressed in the plan, is civic and government leadership, right? We want our newcomers not just to live here, but to thrive, to be voting members, to be part of the community. And so, to Mr. So, Chair of New African Immigrants Commission, how can government create structures that are inclusive and sustainable for immigrants and refugees?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Ifedi, for that question. And I just wanted to really come back to the strategic welcoming plan, because
Yes.
it does lay out a lot of concrete, sustainable, and short-term as well as long-term plans that I think it doesn't take the strength of the state to be able to complete. I think anyone, no matter what the size of the organization, would be able to take bits of it that you have already built the infrastructure for, and to be able to put that into place. And so I think everyone can play a part in really putting the entire welcoming plan into action, whether it's a nonprofit organization or business. And some of the what that inclusivity I think looks like as far as being able to be not only engaged but involved, I think really looks at what this population that is siloed and out of what that sphere looks like is made up of. And so what we have from this strategic welcoming plan is a treasure trove of data, including that 26% of the growth in this region is immigrants and refugees. And so not just looking at this population as an anomaly, but that they are integrated. They make up 26% from 2019 and 2020 data. $1.4 billion in taxes paid by this population. And so it's not only that this population is an island, but that whether it's bonds, levees, buildings, sidewalks, or freeways and roads, those are the contributions that these silent communities that work day in and day out, that's what they contribute. And so I think it's not only that they are entrepreneurial by nature, but it's also that they are dozens of boards and commissions at the Franklin County level, at the city level, that they are not engaged in. And so Ms. Kauter here is an example of what that engagement looks like. And so we shouldn't be in 2022 to be still having first. And so hopefully she is really the first of many that have an accent, that come from different countries, that sit on boards and commissions and that become elected officials, like our very own council member Lourdes, who is also an example. And so I think we're headed in the right direction, but really there are more work that needs to be done, because not every community is at the same place. And so I think what that structure looks like is very intentional, and it takes will, and it takes putting some of these things into action.
Thank you very much, and thanks for recognizing Kauthar again. I know we're running out of time, but one of the things also from the plan is including legislation and legislative actions. And so I encourage people to take a look at that. Almost in every area, there's something to be done by the legislature. So, but let's move on to workforce, because you just mentioned that. And we heard previous panelists talk about the economic power, the economic strength of immigrants, what they do. The ripple effect of them coming in, of course, there's more houses being bought, and I love that we're looking at not just houses, but how do those houses accommodate the kinds of populations we're getting. So let's talk about workforce a little bit. The city of Columbus, Central Ohio, have therefore benefited, but how can they build on this strength? Bill, you can start, and maybe I'll come back to you, Ibrahima, please.
Well, in the most simplest term, Central Ohio will benefit greatly the more immigrants that are welcomed into this community there are. We have empirical data over years that show that if you take the whole body of immigrants, they are generally speaking more entrepreneurial. The subset of refugees, which you would think perhaps would be less able to contribute to the society, are actually surprisingly very entrepreneurial. For every refugee, man, woman, and child that is received into Central Ohio, more than themselves are generated in work for others. So in simplest terms, if we want to create jobs, welcome more refugees.
Very simple, very straightforward. Do you want to add to that real quickly before we go to the last question?
Yeah, just real quickly. So also just going back to the strategic plan, just 8% of the population among immigrants and refugees make up anywhere from 22% of STEM labor force.
Yes.
Right. So what that looks like is that there are not only, as Bill said, entrepreneurs building businesses, but there's also the ecosystem around preparing big employers for these newcomers, whether they're here for 5 years, last week, or they've been here for decades. I think there's a disparity in preparing them to really to integrate these individuals among their labor force, but also supporting small businesses when it comes to what financial support looks like, what training looks like, and how to be able to really expand as far as adding employers and employees to their business.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ibrahima. So the last part of this, well, the second to the last, we haven't really touched on education, which is my part, right? But I knew if I started there, we wouldn't stop. But let's do connected communities, major area, safety. And Bill, I'm coming back to you on this. Your voice was really strong in the process as we walk through this. Again, how can the city, the Franklin County, Central Ohio, facilitate a sense of belonging for newcomers? Very important.
Well, what I loved about this whole process that's been taking place for almost a year is it's not just us sitting together talking about what we think should happen. We brought together people from all around the community, invited them into this conversation. And in the area of connected communities, just a partial list included an East African executive at J.P. Morgan Chase who's in charge of grants and development for communities and also increased diversity in that company. We have a North African who started several businesses already here, a Jordanian 1.5 generation person who's all about how can this community be better. And I can go on down the list. To a person, everyone was saying, they were not saying, give us something. They were saying, how can we give back? How can we give back into this community in ways that are very practical and real for the communities that we represent and for the community as a whole? And to go back to this idea of a hub is very important because these people who are now thriving in the community are being approached by new arrivals from their regions of the world. And the more that they can know what else is out there in the community, the more they are going to be able to help not only them, but also the whole community in its entirety. So this communication hub is, I think, critically important. That probably is not high cost in dollar, but to Rebecca's point, it would increase communication where we are poor right now.
Yes, thank you very much. I know we're almost out of time, but let's see. When we talk about the hub, right? Education becomes one part of that discussion. Ibrahim, I'm going to ask you to speak on that a little bit about what are the needs city government can provide in terms of education for our immigrant population.
Absolutely. So just to start off with this K through 12, I know right now the Ohio Department of Education is rethinking and looking to redesign what English learning access looks like in every single school building across the state. And so I think there have been a lot of monumental work that was done to be able to lead up to that. Because a lot of people worked on what that access looks like, where the gaps are, what the challenges are. And so a state agency doesn't just wake up one day and decide, how do we rethink about this population that falls through the cracks, right? So a lot of people like this organization, like Welcoming America, like there's a lot of work that went into that. And I think also, just going beyond that, the work that Welcoming City and some other partners have done in re-looking at what recertification looks like for individuals with foreign degrees to be able to re-enter or enter the Ohio labor force and really just contribute to the economy as well as climb the social mobility ladder. I think those are two aspects of access that we need to look at. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but that is also reflected in the strategic welcoming plan that I think, to your point earlier, we can really reach out to and look at where legislation needs to be proposed, which state partners we need to work with to be able to make sure that the education access umbrella is inclusive of every single person. Because when one person is able to work and provide for their family, that benefits everybody. And so how do we make sure that this umbrella is really inclusive?
Katha, you seem like you want to say something here.
Yeah, Ibrahim said almost everything, but just I wanted to include one more thing. I think creating after-school programs, I think, is one thing that right now Ohio is missing. I know a lot of parents who are struggling and trying and waking up every morning to help their children, but at the end of the day, they don't speak English. They cannot help the student to work with the assignments. So having after-school program may help with that. May give opportunities students to learn more. So I think that's one thing that I know Ohio used to have, I think, like 8 years ago, but right now I think the city is not funding after-school programs. So I will engage the city to fund those programs, and also I think to create funding for local nonprofit organizations to support educational parties, because they can help newly arrived immigrants, because if they don't have a funding, like they cannot do their work. So having those funding for local nonprofit organizations should be something that the city or the Board of Education should start some discussions around that area.
Yeah, and as always, we know COVID has exposed a lot of things that were already a problem. But just to highlight this point about education, I teach teachers, and we know just even requiring the whole idea of cultural understanding, right? Yep. Getting our educators to have that may be something that we ultimately have to say, do this. Can you require teachers to get this?
Yes.
Because it's so important. Yes. Again, without mandating, I love your, let's not mandate and just comply, make people comply, but it's important that this part of it is brought into the discussion so that that sense of belonging is truly felt. Yes.
Yeah, just to add one more point.
Yes,
also, there is a lot of immigrants who are doctors, engineers, and has almost a PhD degree. Like one day I met a doctor from Turkey. He is OB/GYN specialist. And he came to our clinic and he was looking for assistance. He don't speak English. But when the MAs and everybody else is surfing, they think he's ignorant because he don't speak English. But speaking English is not what makes people to be, educated. So creating a room for people who already have a degree, providing another opportunity for them instead of starting from zero. Yes. Having that kind of resource for them is something I believe we can use those immigrants to help back their community if they get the opportunity. Yeah.
You couldn't have said it any better, because I think we've all lived that experience too, the underemployment of immigrants who come in with foreign degrees and trying to. Welcoming City is actually working on that, and it's part of this plan. So thank you for bringing that to light as well. Right, the panelists have been so wonderful in putting light on this plan, giving us specifics about what could be done, what are the possibilities, and there's a whole range of things, really, that once you get this document, you can run with it, like we're saying. So I'd like to thank you for doing this. I'd like to thank Nadia. I'd like to thank Guadalupe and the entire team. On just a closing remark, I'll say this, because I believe still in the power and the opportunities of this country. So there's a law, a landmark decision, Playa versus Doe, 1982. And every time I bring that up, people say, really? So the issue of education for undocumented students, Supreme Court decision 5-4 says we can't create a class of residents who are less than. That's the thinking of this country, right? So everything we're doing here falls right in line with the principles and values of this country. And they said, no, it doesn't matter that they can't afford it. School education is that important. And so even if you're undocumented, even if you're a refugee, you must get equitable education. So I think that's all we're saying, and it's all connected. And on that note, we can round up this session and have Guadalupe come and give us closing remarks. Thank you very much for being part of this and doing what you do so well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ifedi, and thank you, all of you, the community members who are on this panel. You contribute so much daily and sacrifice your time, your commitment to the community, to Central Ohio, to making a space of welcoming. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here to talk about the goals and the strategies of this welcoming plan. And I just want to say this one more time. Mo Cantor, our national partner, said it. Ibrahim Asol said it. Immigrants and refugees represent 8% of Central Ohio's population, yet contribute 26% to our economy. That's worth repeating. And you can see why this strategic plan is so important. It will reduce barriers for immigrants and refugees in the community, and it will create a more welcoming and space of belonging. It will also expand opportunities in our economy. It will expand opportunities in education and leadership development. So this plan requires all of us to work together. We will continue to work on the next phase of this plan, which is implementation, and we will continue to work with our current partners, but we also want to extend an opportunity for you, our viewing audience. If you would like to be involved in the next phase of this plan, please contact us at columbus.gov or ustogether.us or franklincountykcommissioners.gov. We really invite you to join us in moving forward. And with that, I would like to thank everyone again who participated with this plan. Also, a special thanks to Lucille Frank, Jeffrey Carter, and Councilmember Remies and the City Council, as well as our Franklin County Commissioners, who again put forth they said yes. They said yes to this plan. And so now we have Central Ohio's plan for welcoming immigrants and refugees. Thank you, and have a good day.